This week, California's use of force bill, AB 392, is one step closer to becoming a law. It passed the Assembly and it's headed to the Senate Public Safety Committee next week. But I wanted to find out what changes are in this bill and what is the real impact of its passing. The ACLU said AB 392, if approved, would take California from having one of the most lenient use of force laws in the country to having one of the strongest by raising the bar on legal use of force from when it is reasonable for an officer to do so to when it is necessary in order to save someone's life, basically prevent someone from getting killed. Contingent on its passing is SB 230, which also passed the Senate this week. This bill will establish and fund statewide training standards on de-escalation techniques for all police agencies across the state of California. That bill had initially emerged as a competing bill to the use of force one, supported by police in order to maintain the old reasonable standard for use of force. Getting there involved lengthy negotiations between those trying to protect communities, especially communities of color, from unnecessary killings by cops by demanding that more cops get prosecuted, and law enforcement groups claiming if cops are second-guessing and afraid of facing prosecution if they shoot, then their lives will be in danger. But with these new amendments, that has changed. Last time you and I spoke, you were concerned about 392 putting officers' lives in danger.
Absolutely.
Are you still concerned that the way the bill is written right now, if it passes, that is the case?
I don't think so, because one of the biggest issues when we had that conversation was about the officers having to do a checklist before they could use deadly force. I think that's horrible for not the officers, but I think it's horrible for community, keeping the community safe. By having that language removed, I think it now allows officers to be able to go into a critical incident knowing that if lethal force is dictated at the time of the incident, that they can use it. If not, they can de-escalate, use all these other techniques. That's really what our focus on SB 230 was to provide that training necessary to allow officers to give them greater options.
The language creates what the police identify as their willful right to kill, right? And when you have law enforcement kind of celebrating the fact that, they were able to work with the community to kind of, make the bill make sense for all parties, it scares me. It lets me know that the bill isn't strong enough. It wasn't strong before, and it definitely is not strong right now.
With 392, the initial way it was talked about was it would change the reasonable standard to a necessary standard. That's no longer the case?
That's not the case.
392 sponsors disagree. They say the standard is still elevated to necessary. This can all sound really confusing, but let's take a shot at it. The main and most important amendment is this. Before, a cop could shoot to kill if it was reasonable for him or her to do so. Now a cop can shoot to kill only if it's necessary for him or her to do so in order to prevent death or serious bodily injury, either to the cop or to someone else. That's important because according to the ACLU, cities that have adopted a necessary standard, like Seattle, San Francisco, and Chicago, have seen a reduction in use of force incidents without seeing an increase in cops getting hurt. Who determines if it is necessary? Well, any reasonable cop, taking into account the totality of the circumstances, meaning all the facts known to the officer. In the past, the moments leading up to the use of deadly force, for instance, the shooting, were not considered legally to penalize or prosecute an officer. If, say, the cop was feeling threatened due to his own negligence, did he provoke the confrontation? Did he have an ability to de-escalate and escalated the situation instead? All of this will now be considered. The law now evaluates also the conduct of both the officer and the subject.
So basically, the actions of the officer plus the subject will now be a determining factor versus strictly what the officer does.
How can a dead man speak after a while? Because that's what they do. They don't shoot to heart or say, okay, we're going to shoot you in the leg and you can live to see another day. They shoot to kill. So the person that they quote unquote can see the different perspective will be people like myself advocating for a dead person, a dead body.
The ACLU is still fully supporting the bill, but removing the explicit requirement for de-escalation, as well as the definition of the word necessary from the bill, has some worried that this is just politics and will leave little space for a big systemic overhaul.
For us as a people, we want it to be, we have a bill, they do something wrong, they're held accountable, no ifs, no ands, or buts about it. Now it's kind of like this gray area again. And I think when we get back into that gray area, it leaves more open ideas for the police officers to say whatever rhetoric they usually say, and for us as a people to say, we're not going to get accountability, we're not going to get justice, and we're not going to get transparency. And I think these are the three things we've been echoing. What does it take to prosecute police? What does it take?
That's what accountability looks like. What would you like to see?
I mean, we need police arrested, fired, and jailed.
So you think if AB 293 passes, nothing's going to change?
I don't think anything's going to change. I really don't.
The bill is headed to the Senate Public Committee next week and then to the Senate floor. Governor Newsom has spoken favorably on the bill.